we're getting some work, some evaluative work done there. So what is the role of the commission in this kind of circumstance or setup?
Mayor, Councilmember Clay, the commission will be involved with the review of the information of the study that is performed. That's why we're having a joint study session today, so that direction can be given by both the council as well as input by the Green Practice Commission on the direction that we're intending to head with the project. Certainly, as you know, ultimately it will be the mayor and council that will make the final decision regarding any proposed plan that is produced, as well as the scope of the project. Yes.
I can add something too. So in our proposal, we have listed project stakeholders, and I would assume that the Green Commission is part of the project stakeholders. So as we kick off the study, we want to have a meeting with project stakeholders. So that'll be up to Mr. Rose to decide who that includes. But we welcome as many voices as you want to have at that point. And then as we move through the study, there's another meeting with project stakeholders to discuss our findings, and that all precedes coming back to the study session again. So there will be a couple of points where we make sure we're getting the best of the expertise that you already have who've been thinking through these things for University City.
I would also add that there may be others within the community. One of the things that I always say about University City is perhaps the smartest group of people that I've ever worked with. And so I think we want to make sure that we are looking very broad and that we are getting input from all stakeholders that have an interest in this area.
So since we are in the midst of the initial stages of the police station, is there any prioritization or anything that needs to be taken into consideration there versus the existing buildings, or is that a totally separate project?
One of the reasons that I reached out to Trippers on this is because of the work that they have done with the police station and the Trinity, especially the design of it. And so they have great insight into the area of sustainability. Amy, anything that you would like to add?
Sure. I think there isn't a necessity to move faster with one building than another. We did look at those things certainly during design for the annex and Trinity. I will say that this team will have a head start on those two buildings because we know what's being installed. And so that will help us out. But really, we're trying to get data on all the buildings that you have in your portfolio so that we can see where you can have the most impact with any changes.
I get that, but I guess my question is there some progress that's already been made just in the design and planning
Sure.
of this building? And I think those are things that, in my mind, are important for us to be able to share with the community as far as what we're in the process of doing and why we're doing the rest of this project.
Yes, and that's some of the scope that we added into this proposal, knowing that it's really important for you to have communications that you're sharing with your community. So that is part of this project. Will help you talk about Annex and Trinity through a sustainability lens through the study, as well as what you plan to do with the other buildings.
Mayor, I believe that it's important for you and the council and the community to know. I believe that Amy stated this perhaps not as firmly, that there are a lot of sustainability items that were already included in both the Trinity building and the annex. And so this is just actually advancing some of those concepts and looking at other concepts for the other facilities that we have.
Anyone else? Any members of the Green Practice Commission? You guys, first off, thank you for your service to our community, but does anyone have anything they'd like to say, ask, question? We always welcome as much input as we can get. If you could hit the microphone and give your
Yep.
name, we'd
My name is Matt Emden. I'm a member of the Green Practices Commission. I have a number of questions, but first of all, thank you so much for inviting us to this meeting. It does mean a lot that you value our input and are asking for it. I have a number of questions. One, the timing of this feels a little off. And so I just wonder, if we're in the process of a major remodel and ideally, when you do a greenhouse gas inventory or any of these measures, you typically want to use real data, not modeled data. I find it a little concerning too that we're working with the same firm who did the design for these buildings and are using their modeled data. Typically I would, prefer to use a third-party contractor who doesn't, who's it can be more objective. So that's one note I would like to just bring up. The other thing I'd really like to kind of understand is really what are the next steps that UCity sees that they would do with this carbon assessment? At this time, are they taking a look to see like, okay, we did, greenhouse gas inventory and then we updated it and it's been a while and we want to see what our progress has been? Or is it to set plans to move forward to say, okay, this is, get a real accurate snapshot of where we're at and what are our opportunities for moving forward? Because it feels like this should have been done prior to the annex building. Those plans being finalized. So it feels a little bit like the cart before the horse. And then I'm also curious about other bids. Has this been out to bid to other companies? Or is this the sole bid? And I can give you guys a pause and let you guys respond to that, or do you just want to hear all my questions?
Well, typically we don't necessarily respond back and forth with questions, but we can. And I would say, as with anything in government, it's never quite as beautiful as you would like or as pretty as you'd like. And as I recall, that this began probably more with a conversation with Councilmember Teeman when we were starting the construction, the plans for the construction of the police annex. Said, don't you think as UCity, we should be a little bit more green and concerned about how we're doing this business.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, in response, I would say, though, you may recall that we had a little bit of fireworks before we passed the certificates of participation. So I'm not so sure that a broader discussion would have helped much at that time as we were putting forth that. I do recognize the benefit of having something out for bid. I believe this, as the city manager mentioned, I think this was just more of a first step as to get a conversation going. I don't know this necessarily a prolonged. I think we've had a relationship on and off with Trivers for quite some time from when they redid this years and years ago. But I don't necessarily think that anything is set in stone long-term as to how this moves forward. But that would clearly be an item for the city manager to come back to the council with a recommendation. So I don't know if I answered any of those three in any way that you like them, or if I was too lawyerly or political, but those would be my three answers there.
It gives some good perspective. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I guess more directly to Trivers and IMEG, it felt the scope of work felt a little vague, and I'm not quite sure what the actual outcome report would be like. I've looked over a couple of the reports that you've offered, like the engineering report and modeling data you did for the Trinity Annex building. I also reviewed the life cycle assessment that you provided to be in compliance with the ordinance, and to be totally honest, found that completely lacking. I'm also curious, as you look at the greenhouse gas inventory, what scope of emissions you'll be evaluating, 1, 2, 3. And then what methodology will you be using, like the SciMap or similar process? I was a little concerned when you mentioned as well that this would be very different type of assessment than the previous greenhouse gas method. So if we are trying to see progress that's been made. It's hard to compare apples to oranges, and so it's nice if it's kind of a continuation or a build on for the type of work that's been done previously. So I think those are kind of some of my initial questions that I had, is just maybe a little bit more clarity. It felt pretty vague for a pretty significant price tag. I guess I can pause there and let others respond and ask questions.
Anyone want to swing at that pitch? You may have to hit the microphone button. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, so I will say again that this is not a repeat of the greenhouse gas inventory. This is looking at scope 1 emissions. This is looking specifically at the emissions produced by the buildings that University City owns, and coming up with strategies and, you know, looking at that to create a benchmark. We will be comparing it against the previous studies that did include the energy usage for the city's own buildings, you know, of which Annex and Trinity are just 2 of the 15 that we've identified. So coming up with that benchmarking data, comparing to where things have been, and then strategizing the initial steps and strategizing on what can be done to reduce the emissions in those studies. So this is not a comprehensive evaluation of the greenhouse gases for the entire University City, like the previous inventory was. That's not what is in the scope.
So would I be correct in assuming that it's essentially a utility analysis that you'd be performing?
We, just so you know, you, due to the fact that this is in public, you've got to make sure that one of you speaks and then the other one comes up so
Yeah.
that people who are watching understand what's going on.
Okay. I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, so is this basically a utility analysis?
I think we probably should have asked for your questions ahead of time, and we didn't bring IMEG with us, but I think, so we had, I don't know if you received these 2 pieces of material from IMEG with the decarbonization planning and the utility analytics. Okay, so they have some of their proprietary software that helps us analyze the buildings and plan for decarbonization. So it's a bit more than a utility analysis, but it is just the step 1. So everything included. What was asked for was a carbon footprint assessment. And so that's what we're working toward. We did have additional items that could be added from IMEG, but again, we were trying to offer a substantial initial first step to get some information. As far as deliverables, what we try to do is we build presentations. We'll bring those to you. We'll provide the materials. We'll have good moments for conversation, but also helping you with the communication tools to be able to share the work that's been done and the information that we're finding out. And like you said, where it needs to lead to. And I think James, his point about not being a repeat of your study, it doesn't mean we're not going to build on it or be interested in understanding all of that information. We're saying you're not paying to repeat work that's already been done by your team.
Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Crow. I'm just curious as a process point, and I guess this question is to the city manager, does it make sense that Trivers or IMEG, whoever is principal in this, have some conversation with the Green Practices Commission before anything is codified via a contract? I don't know the answer to that. I'm asking a question.
I think it would be very helpful if the members of the Green Practice Commission have questions to provide that information to either myself or the liaison. to the Green Practice Commission, Dr. Wagner, and we can certainly get answers to any questions that you have. I would like to also state while I've got the microphone that this process is not, it's dissimilar in the sense that we're not seeking equipment, so we're not looking for a bid on the lowest price. What we're looking for is who is the best qualified company to provide a service. And from that perspective, because of Trevor's involvement with the design of the annex and Trinity building, it would be very challenging for another company to exceed the information that Trevor's already has on those two buildings, which will be a very important part of this study. Yes.
One other thing, you might not be aware that we also did a space needs analysis leading up to the Trinity and Annex project. So there are, I lost my page here. I think there's 15 properties in this proposed in the study. And so we did not look at the engine house buildings or the library, so those 3 properties, but we did look at all the others. So in-house, we already have all the plans. We've looked at the square footages. We have that data in-house due to our work on the space needs study. So that's another point.
And I do think to my colleagues, as this is a larger amount, that this will come back to us anyway after a period of conversation. So whether, John, are you the liaison to Green Practices? Okay. Okay, so whether it be to council member Teeman or whether it be to Dr. Wagner in the back, I do think, as always with the members of the Green Practice Commission, what input and questions you have should get to someone sooner rather than later. And I feel very certain though also that Amy and James would be happy to give whatever information that we may have been given that you guys don't have yet, but I'm not sure based on what I've got that there's much more that I have than anybody else has. So anything else?
Any of you?
Mr. Teeman?
Do any of you have any?
Okay, we've got, you either have to be at the microphone or not. So I'm not sure how we're doing this, but with people watching from home, that gets confusing. So if you can give your name and then move forward. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, hi. My name is Tim Schmaltz, member of Green Practice Commission. I did have some concerns and questions, but I think that it might be best if we're going to facilitate communication between the commission and the Trevor's, what was it? The other IMEG. I don't know where exactly we stand, but I think that me sitting here being like question isn't helpful. So that's all we were discussing is whether I had any points, and I think the points are between these folks and don't need to be here.
I feel certain that we can either through email or through a meeting facilitate whatever Q&As need to occur between the Green Practices members and the consultants and frankly, members of council. So John, your light is on. Do you have a?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and my fellow councilman. When this process first began, the analogy I was using was being lost in the woods. I don't have to be an expert in land navigation to know I'm lost in the woods, but I also know that I need some people with compasses to help me out. And likewise, I don't have to be an expert to know that this has to be done. And these are the folks that I hope will provide us with the compasses and with the expertise that we need. I think this kind of change happens in sort of 3 ways. There's a cultural realization that we need to have this done. And then you start seeing these large scale movements in society in general. And then it comes down to us right here, making some practical suggestions of how we address this problem with the environment. I think this is a good start, and I hope we continue this. And I want to thank my fellow councilman, the Honorable Mayor, and the Green Practices Commission. and the folks from Trivers for helping us out with this, and the folks from IMEG and all who are involved for helping us out with this.
Thank you. Any other questions to come before the body regarding the, sorry, Mr. McMahon?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on this because it sounds like I know there was an impetus to get this ball moving, but it sounds like there might have been some process where it could have been the folks at Green Practices might have had a little more involvement before it hit us today. It sounds like and I don't want this to appear to you folks that this is some kind of contentious, like, here, take it or leave it kind of document. And I want to make sure that that's what's going on here, is that this is just the first step so that there can be discussions over scope of work, what's this entails, what you saw as priorities that might not have gotten communicated through us and staff to the folks over here, so that we're getting back to more of a work in progress, so that it doesn't sound like we're questioning each other's motives or ideas, but it's just, this is the springboard to a better future. So that's what I'm getting from the gist of this meeting from a higher level, if I'm accurate on this.
I think your compass is correct.
Thank
I thought I'd go ahead with the navigation, we'll go ahead with that. But, and that's why this is a study session, not the regular session. So this is more of an opportunity for a conversation. So with that being said, I believe the city manager probably has a pretty good feel for what all the steps that will have to happen next. And I'm sure he'll work with Dr. Wagner and with the commission to move forward. So anything else to come before the body on this matter? Hearing none, we will, I think I can entertain a motion to go into closed session according to Missouri Revised Statute 610.021, legal actions, causes of action, litigation involving a public government or body and any confidential privileged communication between a public government or body or its representatives or attorneys and individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees. Is there such a motion? Motion made by Mr. Hales. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Teeman. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the motion?
Councilmember Teeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson, Councilmember McMahon. Aye. Councilmember Hales.
Aye.
Councilmember Clay,
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will move into executive session and be back for the public session at 6:30.